Hey familia, Igni here, and welcome back to another Shadowverse video. Today we're talking about the balance update patch notes that were just announced for the upcoming January 26th release. First we'll read through the notes, then we'll talk about our thoughts on it, and then we'll discuss how the changes made to the cards could impact the metagame once the patch goes live. So, first things first, let's read the notes. Diabolus Agito is buffed from 5 play points to 4 play points. Yuzuki is buffed from 7 play points to 6 play points, and the Accelerate now deals only 1 damage to your leader instead of 2 for the same effect of destroy an enemy follower with 4 defense or less. So if you need a little bit of a reminder, Diabolus Agito is a 4/2 Bloodcraft legendary with Rush. Fanfare, gain +0/+X. X equals the number of times that your leader was damaged during your turn in this match. Can't be destroyed by spells and effects. Can be destroyed by damage from spells and effects. So reducing its cost by 1 makes it a lot less clunky, I feel like, for how little impact it has on the board, given that it's just a single rush body. And Yuzuki, of course, is kind of like a less random Calamity Bringer on Fanfare. Destroy 2 enemy followers. If Vengeance is not active for you, give your leader the following effect. At the start of your next turn, recover 2 less play points. So, really good for control stuff. So, these are both control Bloodcraft cards for that kind of archetype, which has been pushed a lot in Ultimate Colosseum, I think. But it doesn't really have a finisher. So more on this later, but first let's just keep reading on through. Of course, since they are being buffed, they're not going to get a Vile bonus if you try and liquefy them. And here's what we want to read here. As we previously explained in the changes to take 2 cards in the January 13 release announcement, after going over high-ranking match data from early January, we found no top deck archetypes with an overwhelming win or usage rate in either the rotation and unlimited formats. We've therefore decided not to change any cards in this format. However, in order to help classes with current low usage and win rates and diversify the current play environment, we will be strengthening Diabolus Agito and Yuzuki Righteous Demon. And then, of course, it affects your Take 2 and Open 6 runs, and the next update is going to be scheduled for February 19, so a few weeks from now. So what do we think about the statement that there are no overwhelming win or usage rates in either the rotation and unlimited formats? Well, I think the knee-jerk reaction of a lot of people in the community is to be a little bit skeptical, not necessarily because the data is wrong or anything, but just because there is no data presented in the patch notes, and their own user experience, of course, is experiencing an overwhelming amount of Kuon spell boost runecraft on ladder, or at least that's the perception that they have. Let's take a look at whether or not that is actually true. Of course, usage rate for Kuon I expect to be a little bit high on the ladder, honestly, because it's a very good deck, of course. But we'll take a look at some results from JCG. This one is just from a day ago. JCG, if you guys didn't know, is a Japanese tournament with a 2-deck, no-ban format. So I feel like it more closely mimics the environment of ladder than tournaments that have a ban included in their format. So if we take a look at the top 16 from just a day ago, we can see there's a, this is from Reddit by the way, great breakdown here. There's a representation of 11 runecraft players in the top 16, all playing Shikigami Rune, 7 playing Yokai Shadow, 6 playing Forest, 4 playing Sword, 3 playing Dragon, and 1 playing Blood, actually. And I think this is actually okay. What I feel like this indicates, at least at the professional level, of course this is only one tournament, so take this with a bit of a grain of salt, but I do think that this kind of indicates that the ire towards runecraft is a little bit more than is justified for rotation in any case. Don't get me wrong, it is a very strong deck, and I do think it is probably a little too strong, and I wouldn't have been unhappy if it was nerfed. And again, I still maintain my position from all the other times I've made videos in this manner, that you shouldn't only balance your game based off raw numbers. Instead, you should also take a look, at least partially, at user experience. But, that being said, I do think that the representation of 11 runes and 7 shadows, and of course all these other classes as well, makes it seem like runecraft, while very good and probably a little overrepresented, isn't as dire a problem as it initially appears. And let's take a look at Unlimited. Compare this to Unlimited now. This is from the most recent Unlimited JCG, as far as I know, from the 19th of January, of course this is recently as in the most recent that I can find in the Reddit search results here. Yeah, top 16 here. As you can see, all 16 have brought Amataz, and 13 have brought Rune, and only 3 other decks were even represented from other classes. So I feel like for Unlimited, this is more of a hard pill to swallow in terms of no overwhelming win or usage rates. I think the representation of Amataz Forest in high competitive and Unlimited is kind of not okay. I don't think that this is probably healthy for the format. Of course, again, this is just one tournament, so not exactly a big sample size or anything, but I do think it's an indicator. Again, 16 Forest, 13 Rune. So, do I disagree with the fact that there's no changes? I think regarding rotation, I don't disagree, but I do think that I would have been happier with a nerf to Rune, at least slightly. And even the fact of increasing the usage and win rate of underrepresented classes, I do find it peculiar that it's both Bloodcraft cards. Of course, I don't have the data. Perhaps Bloodcraft is just far and away the worst class, and I would probably agree that that's the case. But if we're talking about usage rates, I mean, I've barely seen any, Portal around. I've also barely seen any Haven, although maybe Haven doesn't really need it as much, because I do think that Haven is okay. Not amazing, but okay. But yeah, interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bloodcraft definitely needed it the most, but, Okay. So in terms of rotation, what would I have liked to see? I would have been okay with a nerf to Kuon, given the fact that Kuon is also doing very, very well in Unlimited. So I don't think that it would have been unjustified. But that's probably about it. I wouldn't want to touch it too much in terms of nerfing every single card in the spell boost deck, I don't think that's necessary, but I do think that perhaps increasing the cost of Kuon would have been okay for this balance update. Next thing is for Unlimited. I do think that, of course, Amataz should have probably been limited, because this is a lot. And I can kind of echo this sentiment when I played Unlimited as well. And on my climb, there was a lot of Rune and there was a lot of Forest, and this is basically what this tournament is representing as well. So yeah, in summary, I do think that Runecraft should have been nerfed a little bit, and I do think that Amataz Forest and Unlimited should have been looked at as well. But in terms of rotation nerfs, I can understand why they didn't do it. Of course, I don't have the numbers as well, but that's just my personal opinion in any case. Now, for the cards that have been buffed here, how do I think it's going to affect Control Blood? I think Control Blood it's not good. Don't get me wrong, it's not good. And Forest obviously does it so much better, and Dragon is also just going to, eat you alive. But it's a playable deck, and I have to say how sad it was for the Premier Control Blood list to not even run Yuzuki before this patch. Let's take a look at a list from Hiu0427 here on Twitter, where they got a 10 win streak, which is better than I've seen this expansion for Blood in terms of rotation. Of course, some people do play aggro, but the cards that were buffed were control-based cards. So let's take a look at his control list. I got a 10 win streak here. So as you can see, no Yuzuki and no Diabolus Agito at all, despite the fact that this deck does have self-ping, and it does have a need for removal, because it's a control deck, right? So I think buffing Yuzuki down to 6 is going to be pretty instrumental, because now the damage you're taking from the Accelerate is not as punishing, and importantly, it's not competing for the 7-drop slot against Cradle of Dark Divinity anymore. Now it curves directly into Cradle of Dark Divinity, so it might actually be a better consideration to run. Of course, the fact that it's now cheaper means that its Fanfare is so much more effective at staving off mid-game aggression and taking back the board for you. Plus, the fact that it's now falling onto a turn where an evolution point is unlocked makes it much easier to 3-for-1 using Yuzuki in the mid-game and retake control of the board, and then from there you can recover with Cradle of Dark Divinity and Aragavi and what have you. So I really like the Yuzuki buff a lot. The Diabolos Agito buff, I'm just not sure if it's going to be particularly relevant. It's just kind of a low impact card. It's just a body that can become big, but the payoff for it is just an annoying, persistent follower. That doesn't necessarily do a lot to advance your win condition. It's mostly just a trading machine, I feel like, Diabolos Agito. And doesn't do a whole lot for you. So I don't think that Diabolos Agito is even going to be good. Unless you can really just ping yourself a bajillion times and get it down on turn 4. Then that could be very good for you. Like even just a couple of times, if you ping yourself like 3 times and then play Diabolos Agito on 4, it's a 4/5 with Rush that can't be destroyed by spells and effects, right? But then even then, it can just get evolved over. I think it's kind of low impact, to be honest with you. So I'm not too impressed by the Diabolos Agito buff, but maybe I'll be proven wrong in the coming months as more experienced Control Blood deck constructors can figure out how to use it. But just on first glance, I am very much more happy with the Yuzuki buff than this one for sure. And I'm just happy with the Yuzuki buff outright. I think it's going to be good for Control Blood. Despite it being a subpar deck, I think Yuzuki is going to, if not help the deck immensely, at least find a slot in the list. Because right now it's not even there. And that's kind of sad. Maybe it's just outshined by Aragavi. I have played this deck a little bit. It's like I said, it's not great, but I feel like the Yuzuki could do some work. Okay, those are my thoughts, I suppose, for now on the balance update. Like I said, would have liked to see a little bit of a Rune nerf, would have liked to see an Amataz nerf in Unlimited, but what did you guys want to see from this balance update? Was this everything you hoped for? Were you one of the Diabolos Agito diehard fans who was just waiting for this moment to finally arrive, or do you think that something else could have been changed in this patch instead? And if you do think that, let me know in the comments down below what you would have liked to see. What you would have liked to see seen from this patch. Let's talk about it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like it if you did, don't if you didn't, subscribe for more Shadowverse content in the very near future. And of course, thank you to my wonderful patrons, patreon.com/Ignideus. If you'd like to support the channel as well, I would highly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.